Hi, everybody. Welcome to Story Hour. I am your host, Daniel Marcus. My disarmingly fabulous co-host is Laura Blackwell. Um, I started Story Hour over 5 years ago, if you can believe that. It was in the early days of the pandemic. Things were pretty strange out there. We were living through um, the what we thought was the apocalypse that we've been reading about and writing about for many years. And I wanted to create a place where my writer friends and I could just get together, share our work, and that's kind of how it started. Shortly after I kicked it off, I asked my friend Laura to join me in co-hosting, and it has just grown so far beyond either of our expectations, that it's just crazy. We've been at it every week pretty much, except for the occasional vacation, for 5.5 years, and we've had literally hundreds of authors of every stripe, award-winning professionals, folks who have just sold their first few stories, everybody in between. And we also welcome stories from every corner of the big weird tent that is speculative fiction. So horror, hard SF, soft SF, weird, slipstream, etc. Pick your favorite subgenre. Um, so things are still pretty weird out there, and they're getting weirder. But uh, Laura and I think that that means, among other things, that we need stories more than ever, and we need each other more than ever. We're not going anywhere, and hopefully you're not either. Um, Story Hour relies on a truly ancient tradition, and that is folks sitting around the fire telling each other lies. So every week, two writers, 30 minutes each, continuing this practice, narrating their own work. Um, we want to thank SIFWA, the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America, for their very generous grant, which helps us to keep the lights on and keep these rooms open. And with that, we'd like to welcome our authors this evening, RJ Aurand and Karen Heuler. We're going to start the programming with Karen. Karen Heuler's stories have appeared in over 140 literary and speculative publications, from Asimov's to Conjunctions to F&SF. Her latest novel, The Splendid City, came out from Angry Robot Books in 2022. That is a great shop. I love Angry Robot. And her newest collection, A Slice of the Dark, was published by Fairwood Press. Arc Manor has just re-released Glorious Plague, the story of a beautiful apocalypse, and The Clockworm, which Publishers Weekly said contains stories that are remarkably inventive and brimming with ideas not found anywhere. Ah, yes, the cover, awesome. Brimming with ideas not found anywhere else in contemporary fantasy fiction. Reissued by Arc Manor Phoenix Picks. Karen first appeared on Story Hour back in February 2023. So, Karen, welcome back. The floor is yours.
I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you very much for finding me again. And my hearing isn't so great, so if there's a pause where there should be an answer, just let me know.
You bet.
Should I start?
Please.
Okay, so I'm reading from The Clockworm, and I'm going to issue a trigger warning. This is a very dark fairy tale, and I'm going to say the warning is about body horror, which I think is the best category I can put it into. So it's called The Stray Curse. This is the kind of thing that happens all the time, though not to everyone and not everywhere. Gina had long brown hair and brown eyes and smooth skin, and a mother she didn't see every day. She was grown and had her own world, and that was the way it should be. Gina's mother had left her mother, who had left her mother, a long string of mothers being left and knowing they had done it in turn and turn again. But all of a sudden, Gina felt a strange tug at her back. It began with an itch, then a bruise, then a feeling like there was a hook in her spine. She turned around to see what it was, and as soon as she turned, the pain went away. But when she shrugged and turned again, it came back fierce and strong. She couldn't move forward, it hurt her back. She turned around and took a step, then a hurried step. She was sure it was her mother, pulling her home. She ran faster and faster, the closer she got, flinging the door open when she reached her mother's house. Her mother wasn't there. She called out to her. No answer. She ran round the back to the woods. Her mother was the last house before the wilderness, and then down to the local pond where her mother liked to swim. She stood on the little dock the town had built. Her eyes traveled restlessly, and she was about to turn back when she glanced down. There below her, deep in the water, her mother reached an arm up. It didn't break through the surface. Her mother's lips were moving. Gina dropped to her knees and reached down as far as she could. Her fingertips touched her mother's wrist, but she couldn't grab hold and pull her up. She put her ear to the water. She could hear her mother distantly yelling, Gina, Gina, help me, Gina, help me. Grab my hand, she yelled back at her mother, but her mother couldn't. Gina decided to jump in, but strangely enough, she flattened out on the water and she couldn't reach down any further than she had before. She felt frantic. She couldn't understand why she couldn't reach her mother. You'll never get her that way, a voice said, startling her. She's cursed. She turned to the man who'd spoken. Cursed? Who would curse her? She's never hurt anyone or anything. The man, lounging on a lifeguard's chair, tipped against a tree trunk, straightened up and shrugged. Well, does it matter? Do you want to find out who did it? Or do you want to find out how to undo it? Two different tracks entirely. I want to free her, Sheena cried. Well, okay, but you know how it is with curses. There's always a trick to getting them undone. He was a slight man with dirty hair and a dirty cap that once used to be blue. Can I trust you? Gina asked impulsively. He walked towards her. Of course you can. I'm a lifeguard. I know all about curses. I've even given out a few in my time. Before you ask, it wasn't me. I'm older than I look and I'm much more cautious. In the past, I've regretted a few things I've done, so I don't do them as quickly as I used to. He smiled faintly. It made Gina feel a little surer, that smile. What should I do to release her? At that, he frowned, as if he'd suddenly thought of an obstacle. It isn't all that easy, he said. Curses are meant to stay. Of course, he added thoughtfully. All curses are a series of trades. There's always a little crack. What's the crack? She demanded. Hard for me to know. I'm not active anymore. He closed his eyes dramatically and took a deep breath and opened them again. You need advice from someone with more connections. The school nurse comes across the young and the emerging, and they're more likely to be the ones to let a stray curse go, in case it is a stray curse. Yes, go to the school nurse. I think that should do it. But I can't leave my mother here, she cried. Of course not. He handed her a jar. When she glanced at it, she saw her mother deep in the murky waters of the jar. Why can't I just tip it over? Why is she so small? She's the same size. The water's the same size. The problem's the same size. I just changed the perspective. Gina put the jar up to her eyes. She could faintly hear her mother yelling, Help me, Gina. Go ahead, the man said, and Gina reached her fingers in through the top of the jar and found that her hand was tiny and there was the same old problem. Her mother was beneath the water calling for help, and Gina couldn't reach her. She pulled her hand up. What can I do? You have to take her with you to the school nurse. She's very wise. But I have to warn you, she'll make a hard bargain. Harder than mine, at least. You're bargaining something? I'm making it possible for you to take your mother with you. Without that, you might lose track of her completely. Don't you think that's valuable? Of course, Gina said hastily. For that, I only ask for your toes. He looked modestly away. Gina was struck with a sudden bolt of terror. Why would you want my toes? What a terrible thing to ask for. I could have asked for a loan. Surely you see how reasonable I am. I hope you won't insult me by refusing. I'd have to take my gift back. He reached for the jar, which Gina hastily hid behind her back. All right, she said, and closed her eyes for an instant as a quick, piercing pain hit both her feet, and when she opened her eyes, her toes were gone, and so was the man. She did little hops for a short distance until she learned how to walk without toes. Really, it was a waddle of sort, flat-footed, and as she got used to it, she got better at it. Her feet slid around in her shoes now, since the shoes were clearly too big without toes to fill them. She stopped and tore her sleeves off and wadded them into the toes of her shoes. There was no blood. The school nurse was sitting at her desk, filling in forms. She looked up at Gina's knock. Her eyes slid from Gina's face to the jar Gina held. What's that? The nurse asked with interest. It's my mother, Gina said. Someone has cursed her. I can't reach her now. My hands won't reach her. She unscrewed the lid and reached in to show how impossible it was to connect with her mother's hands. She could hear her mother faintly yelling. Well, all mothers leave, the nurse said, in one way or another. Isn't that so? She's yelling for help, Gina pointed out. The nurse sighed. I'm here to give help, it's true, but your mother's obviously been cursed, and there's no conventional cure for a curse, especially an unconventional curse. She jiggled the jar, stuck her thumb quickly on her tongue in motions as if she were paging through a manual in the air. Yes, she said finally, this is a tough one to cure. Whoever did this curse, the diminishing curse, it's hard to counter. It's very strong. It requires sacrifice. I already gave my toes, Gina whispered. The nurse was surprised. Why would you do that? What good are toes? The lifeguard required them. He's a fetishist, that's all. He'll probably carry them in his mouth for a month and then spit them out. I never can understand people like him asking trades for nothing. Well, when you ask something, you risk something. She looked at Gina. What am I risking? Gina asked quickly. To get my mother back? You may not get what you request. You may get more than you request. You may get something other than what you request, or you may get nothing at all. But nothing changes without a choice. Jean appeared at the jar in which her mother faintly sank. What will you require from me? I need a strip of your skin, she said. How much skin? Why, all of it, the nurse said, surprised. One continuous strip of all your skin, starting under your right armpit and going up and down until it's as long as a river. That's the sympathetic part of it. The river and the water your mother is in, it's a way to reach her. You hang the into the jar, and your mother will grab onto it and be pulled to the top. Gina was aghast. But my skin, what will I do without my skin? And do you give it back to me once we get my mother back? Oh, no, of course not. Magic doesn't work on lending things, it works on giving things. I'll keep it, of course, because I use the skin for medicinal purposes. Here she opened up the bottom filing cabinet, and Gina could see bunches of tightly wrapped skin, like rolls of cellophane, in Ziploc bags. I'll give you an ointment, of course, the nurse concluded. It will only sting at first. And it stung terribly and seemed to go on for a terribly long time. But eventually the nurse had the whole roll of skin gathered up, and she put a drop of ointment under Gina's chin. It seemed to cover her body immediately, and indeed the sting went away, although there was a residual sense of stickiness, whether from the ointment or from missing a layer of skin, Gina could not tell. She tried not to look at her skinless hand, red and white in an unpleasant sort of way, as she picked up her mother's jar and unscrewed the lid. The skin, she whispered, and the nurse obliged, handing it to her rolled up as a ball of yarn. Gina unrolled it slowly and lovingly. The skin was herself, a strange sensation, her former self, her armor against the world, the border between her and it. She put the jar on the desk and unrolled her skin so that it tipped into the jar, dipping slowly, very slowly, into her mother's world. She had to squint to see her skin once it hit the perspective of the jar, being very thin and barely visible, but she lowered it and saw it curl along the top of the water. It didn't have enough weight to actually dip in. She raised it up and out. What could I put on it to make it go into the water? She whispered. Put it into your mouth and wet it with your tongue, the nurse said. Nothing would get a mother hooked more than the kiss from a daughter. Trust me, she'll go for it. Gina took her own skin, the very tip of it, and put it on her tongue. It felt fragile and thin, exactly as expected. She moistened it with her saliva, and then she took it out and kissed it. That will work, the nurse promised. But it didn't. But it didn't. Her mother reached for it. Gina would swear to that, but she couldn't reach far enough. Instead, bubbles rose from her mouth to the surface. Inside each bubble, Gina was sure, were her mother's cries, "Help me, Gina, help me!" She lifted up the skin and lowered it again, 5 times, down and up, pause, down and up. The nurse cheered her on. "You're almost there," she said. "This time it will work." Finally, Gina gave up. She lowered her head. Her mind was almost numb. Her body throbbed and her heart was sore. "Oh, well," the nurse said, "we took a chance." Gina raised her head. "What chance did you take?" she asked. The nurse flushed. "I lose too when the healing doesn't work, but I feel I owe you something, or it's just that I have a good heart. I have a lifetime spent in undoing things like this. If I can't get you to reach her, then the spell is particularly strong. I can give you a referral." She stepped over to her desk, leaning down to a small cylinder, which she spun quickly. "Ah, here it is. Dr. Ramona, transplants." "Transplants?" Gina said weakly. "Well, of course. Your mother doesn't have the will to reach your hand. We must transplant some into her. That's obvious." She nodded vigorously to herself, handing the card to Gina, who took up the salve, her mother's jar, and the card, and walked carefully out of the door. Luckily, Dr. Ramona was nearby, behind a mall with sales on lots of glittery things. There was no one in the waiting room, which concerned Gina, but she felt resigned to it. No one could help her. What did it matter? She was ushered into an examination room. "What is it?" the doctor asked. She wore a short white cotton jacket over her clothes. Her name was sewn onto her pocket. Gina held her mother out to her. The doctor took the jar, squinting, considering. She took her time. She tapped the jar, she tipped it, she unscrewed the lid and stuck a wooden tongue depressor into it. She listened with her stethoscope. "I've seen this once before," she said finally. "And what happened?" The doctor drew her lips in tightly. "I'm sorry," she said. "This is not a deliberate curse. It's a random one. The person who did this isn't even aware. That makes it harder to counter it. In essence, there's nothing to counter. No animosity, no anger, no feelings at all. There was no intent. It just happened. A stray curse." Gina sat there. It was so quiet that the faint ring of her mother's cries could be heard, even even from as far away as within the jar. "My mother is calling for help," Gina whispered. "Yes," the doctor said, "I would too." Even that simple agreement cheered Gina. The doctor understood. "What about a transplant?" The nurse said something about a transplant. The minutes ticked away. The doctor's silence. She pursed her lips. She loosened them. Her eyes roamed. Her eyes came back. She lifted her hand, she put it down. There might be some hope, she agreed quietly, some small hope, but it's such a risk, and there's so much to lose. I think she's lost just about everything already, Gina argued. I didn't mean for her. There's not much left for her to lose. I meant for you. Sometimes a curse is stronger because the victim has no will to survive, a kind of compromised immune system, if you will, immunity being the desire to live. We could take yours and give it to her, but you see the danger, don't you, if we take yours away? Gina saw it definitely. If she gave her own desire to live to her mother, then what would be left for her? It was a sickening prospect, really. She wanted her own life, certainly. Was that selfish and cruel? Her eyes strayed to the jar with her mother in it, which the doctor had set down on the table. The doctor waited intently. What is the success rate? Jana whispered. Very small. Then why do it? Why take the chance? I wouldn't advise it myself. I wouldn't do it myself. We don't really understand curses like this. Impersonal, indifferent, lacking passion. They can't be broken easily because we don't know what was offered to make the curse. So we can't offer more. It's irrational. That's the problem. When you have an irrational curse, there's very little hope. She waited to see if Gina would say anything. The ones who survived may have survived accidentally. Gina's eyes were on the jar. She's suffering. She is. But we have no proof that she knows she's suffering. That part of her may be gone. At least we can hope so. Gina took her mother's jar. She walked down the long street back to her mother's house. She walked slowly because she didn't have her toes to take some of the burden off her heels. She held the jar in her hands, but the jar often slipped because there was no skin to keep her body fluids from seeping out. Her body was weeping. She tipped the jar every which way, but no matter what position it was in, her mother was still below the water, still reaching up, still calling faintly. Her mother's house was the last house before the wilderness. It was a thing her mother often spoke about, though there was nothing in particular Gina could recall about it, not her mother's wishes concerning it, not whether it was frightening or soothing. Gina stood at its edges. She was silent and listened for a long time. She didn't know if her mother could hear her. Her mother hadn't answered her so far, and it seemed she couldn't change what she was saying. Forever and ever, she would call out, "Help me, Gina." And forever and ever, Gina could not. Before the sunset, when the birds sang their last song, Gina raised her arm and flung the jar as far as she could into the wilderness, so far that she would be unable to find it, so far that she couldn't hear it, so far that only another jar flung exactly the same way would land next to it and add its own unrelenting cry. She would leave instructions for her own daughter if it should happen to her. Fling my jar far and wide and long, she imagined herself writing as she turned to walk down the road to her own house. Let me go. Thank you.
Oh my, thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you.
That was lovely.
It's creepy.
Very
What?
creepy.
So creepy.
Very
Yeah, I
creepy.
know, I
Lovely.
know.
Now I'm dying to know. You said this is based on a fairy tale?
It is a fairy tale, not based on anything. It is my fairy tale.
Oh my gosh. Okay, because it really has that feel.
It does.
And I was wondering if it was based on something. I couldn't find it.
No, this was actually written in response to my mother's dementia, and that makes a
Mhm.
little bit more sense as to the unable to reach business.
Oh my.
So
Yeah.
it's my fairy
Absolutely.
tale.
Yeah, for sure.
and writing down the instructions for your own child.
Yeah,
And I'm so sorry that you went through that.
so many people do now, you know.
Mhm.
It's
It's
true.
rough.
It's true. It's a very powerful story.
Thank you.
All right, Karen Heuler, folks. We're going to just take a pause, breathe once or twice before we move on. Well, I'm going to breathe once or twice. Y'all can do whatever you like. Hopefully, it'll have something to do with breathing. Karen Heuler, folks. Our next author is RJ Aurand. We're really delighted to welcome RJ for the first time here in Story Hour. RJ is a Southern Appalachian writer, poet, and lover of the bizarre, whose work can be found in Blanket, Gravity Magazine, Small Wonders, Solsticia, The Deadlands, and others. You can connect to RJ on Blue Sky at rjaurand.bsky.social or at rjaurand.com. RJ, welcome and take it away.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Um, I'm going to be reading my story, One for Sorrow, which appeared in Blanket Gravity Magazine #1 in February of this year. It is a downer of a story, and content warnings do apply for cancer, passive suicidal ideation, and childbirth in a nightmare sequence. So listen with care.
What's not to like?
My wife is 29, the year the crows take her. They descend upon our little house before we even know she's sick. Waking on a cold and rainy Tuesday morning, we find our garden blanketed in black feathers. As I spread jam and butter on charred toast, hundreds of beady eyes watch me through the kitchen window. We consult a wildlife expert, who is interested but unhelpful, and then an ornithologist at the community college. Scraping her frazzled curls back into a plastic clip, the ornithologist tells us that relationships with corvids are typically established over months to years. She asks us if we've been feeding them. We don't even have a compost heap, and I tell her so. She has no other guidance to offer. We thank her for her expert advice and drive home. As I idle the truck in the street, Claire hops out and charges the writhing mass of crows in the driveway, flapping her arms and squawking. They part for her like the Red Sea. I try to read omens and their numbers while I wait, the way my grandmother taught me to when I was a child. The old rhyme comes back to me in a blaze of heat, steeped in the smell of the wood stove she kept burning in her sunroom even in July. Her mountains of crochet afghans, burnt orange and soft peach and pea green, the framed jigsaw puzzles with painted beeswax filling in for missing pieces. Her house is long gone, but the memory of drinking iced tea with her on the faded couch, as sweat soaked into my overalls, is comfort enough on this most disconcerting of days. I recite the words in my head in a sing-song rhythm, but the rhyme has nothing to say about a murder of this size. I settle for the single crow that alights on the hood as I cut the engine, peering at me through the windshield. One for sorrow. Claire makes wedding soup for dinner, and I busy myself hanging aluminum pie tins from the eaves to fend off the birds. When I return to kiss her in front of the simmering pot, she turns her head away. I press my lips to her neck instead, and her pulse jumps uneasily against my cheek. There is a rustling at the window. Sharp beaks peck at the glass. We find the lump in her breast 2 weeks later. We purchase a decoy owl at the garden center and install it on the roof. I brave the rusted ladder with its clubbed left foot, climbing with our plastic protector tucked under my arm. The crows seem even less convinced than I am of its authenticity, and before I finish descending, 2 of them have alighted on its back. I watch them from the ground in dismay, wondering if I'll be laughed out of town if I try to hire an exterminator. Our champion is slain in the night. We find its hollow corpse on the doormat, peck marks stippling its skin. It looks strangely nude, as if its feathers had been plucked. I wonder how it could have lost something it never had in the first place, as 2 of the flock's enforcers hop around on the corners of the mat, watching us inquisitively. Although all the crows look alike, I cannot shake the feeling that these are the same ones from yesterday. Unease grips the base of my skull as I realize they are staring, not at me, just at Claire. Their heads bob and their gazes flit around, but they never let her out of their sight. I'm seized by the sudden and irrational fear that they've come to collect her as carrion. I'm contemplating retrieving the bat we keep behind the bedroom door for emergencies and playing crow baseball with it when she begins to laugh. The sound of it shocks me out of my anger. We're under siege by winged assassins, and Claire is laughing until her face is mottled crimson and the breath comes out of her in little squeaks. I fail to find the humor in the situation and leave her there, wheezing and gripping the doorframe for support. Later, when she thinks I'm in the shower, I catch her feeding them treats. I tape butcher paper over our bedroom window because I can't sleep with the crows looking in. 3 of them are silhouetted through it like shadow puppets. I understand that the wing flapping is because they're trying to keep their balance on the narrow sill, but the movement still looks threatening in my periphery. Claire is resplendent in her pink terry cloth robe. I've made a nest of our bed, crowding our already cluttered room with everything I can think of to keep her comfortable and happy. There's a mountain of quilts in case she gets cold, and a high-powered bladeless fan in case she gets hot. There's a basket of chocolate almonds and cracker sleeves on the bedside table in case she feels like eating, and a small wastebasket lined with a shopping bag in case she throws up. A tiny plastic humidifier vaporizes peppermint essential oil day and night to help with the nausea. I've moved our little TV from its niche downstairs to the top of our dresser, where it plays constant reruns of NCIS and holds court over the dozen or so pill bottles that are supposed to be saving her. She is reading Byron while the murder investigation plays out in the background. Careful not to crowd her, I lie on the bed and let out a sigh. She puts the book down and caresses my cheek, but she's still watching the shadow birds in the window. Shifting closer, I press a kiss behind her ear, and when she doesn't flinch away, I explore further. The hollow of her throat, the curve of her breast, the soft expanse of her stomach. I cherish the warmth of her against my skin, the taste of her on my tongue. These treasured sensations, nearly forgotten as the invaders gain ground. I am only satisfied when she's looking at me. I dream that I am giving birth, lying on my back in a forest clearing on the bank of a stream, my feet resting in the shallows. A hooded midwife rests between them, the fabric of her dress sodden with cold water. I wail when she pulls the child free of me, and again when it does not cry, dark blood dripping from me into the current. She bundles my issue in white cloth and stands, water streaming down her legs. I reach out for it with weak arms, choking back sobs. I just know that if I can keep hold of it, the child can be saved. Crows hang from the branches of the trees like fruit. The midwife approaches the largest of them and offers up the bundle. Dragging myself to my feet, I stumble after her, but I'm too slow. The crow takes the cloth in its beak, and the murder takes flight as one. The flapping of their wings blows the hood from the midwife's head, and a scream forces its way up my throat as I recognize my betrayer. Claire's face is sharp and angular, its features all wrong. Pin feathers push through her skin like needles. I claw a fist-sized stone from the ground, breaking my nails in the soil, and throw it with all my might at the crow that has taken our child. My aim is true. It drops the bundle and I run to catch it, but the cloth opens, and there's nothing inside. The world tilts sideways and I wake up sobbing. 4 crows are pecking at the skylight, peering down at my pitiful form curled up on the couch as I wipe tears from my eyes with shaking hands. I grab a book from the coffee table and hurl it at the glass, where it lands with a satisfying thunk and sends the crows scattering before falling earthward and striking me square in the nose. I'm blinded with pain and maddened with grief. The sound that bubbles out of me is not recognizable as human. From upstairs, Claire yells for me to be quiet. The crows and I are engaging in siege warfare. I buy a computer speaker for $4 at Goodwill and use it to play crow distress calls at high volume from the window of our guest bedroom. This does briefly drive them off, but then our neighbors threaten to call the police, and Claire forces me to take it down. The crows return. I add a mile of reflective tape to the trees and bushes around our house. The world is wrapped in tinsel, as if Christmas has come several months early. Every sunrise is blinding. We keep the windows shaded to make it bearable. Claire is too sick by this point to stop me, although she does think me ridiculous. She tells me that it's only a matter of time before the city declares our home a hazard to passing drivers. I can't bring myself to care. Unfortunately, the crows don't seem to care much either. Eventually, autumn pulls the leaves from the trees, and the detritus renders the world dull and brown once more. So I begin hanging crows in effigy. My internet research has taught me that they are intelligent creatures, and also that they avoid their dead brethren at all costs. I find my feathered warnings at the bottom of a clearance bin of Halloween decorations and spend an entire afternoon staging them around our property so they look convincingly deceased. The next morning, I watch from the porch with my coffee as a group of 5 agitated crows hop around one of the styrofoam ones. I'm delighted to see them in anguish. They stay away for almost an entire week after that. On the day they return, something unfamiliar glints at me from the kitchen windowsill. I pull open the sash to retrieve it, snatching my hand back when I realize it's a tooth, a human one, a molar, with a large silver filling in its center. I gag with revulsion as I imagine a mass of black wings descending on a wizened old man as he waits at the bus stop, sharp talons pulling his mouth wide, cruel beaks prying the tooth from his jaw. I understand that this is a threat. When I help Claire downstairs so she can sit in the rocking chair on the porch before it gets too cold, she's delighted to discover the tooth on the kitchen counter. I haven't been able to dispose of it yet. It seems wrong to throw it in the trash with the coffee grounds and orange peels, but burying it feels like overkill. Claire declares it a gift, and when I try to take it from her, becomes so upset that I'm frightened for her health. I allow her to keep it only because I'm at a complete loss as to what to do. She slips it into the pocket of her robe, keeping her hand there as if she's afraid it will disappear. Later, when she's fallen asleep from her evening meds, I go to retrieve it and find it missing. She's hidden it, I'm sure, to keep it from me. I come downstairs the next morning and find another one. An escort of 6 crows delivers a gold ring. The band is unadorned and marred with scratches from years of wear. It bears no stone. I'm stumped as to its significance. The teeth I understood, but this? The ring vanishes soon afterward, leading me to wonder if I imagined it for almost 2 full days before it reappears on Claire's finger, sandwiched between the slim band I placed on her at our wedding and her engagement ring, which once belonged to her grandmother. The 70 years of blissful marriage its diamond symbolizes were meant to bless us with just as many. In our current state, I think we'll be lucky to make it to 7. Everything is trying to take her from me. The cancer, the crows, the catatonia she lapses into whenever I leave the room. So much of her has already been consumed. Soon there may be nothing left, and I'm both terrified of losing her and braced for the hammer to fall. I corner her in the upstairs hallway and demand she take it off. She refuses. We've never fought like this before. Accusations are flung like knives across the threshold of our little bedroom, and although both of us know that words like these can never be unspoken, neither of us can swallow them any longer. She screams that I'm a controlling piece of shit. I call her a burden, accuse her of hating me. She yells back that maybe she does. The basket of almonds and crackers and nausea tablets tumbles to the floor, spilling its contents all over the rug. Claire hurls the remote at me, but her aim is poor, and it shatters against the door frame. For the first time in months, the NCIS reruns stop. Neither of us can stomach each other that night. Claire locks herself in the bedroom, sequestered with that cursed ring on her finger, hating me through the closed door. I can feel her anger poisoning me as I lie on the couch, staining the upholstery with my tears. Through chemo and PET scans and good days and bad, she never takes the ring off. It remains, an impenetrable barrier between us, in sickness and in health. Claire's hair is starting to grow back, and a fine dusting of strawberry blonde glitters on her scalp in the morning sunlight. It looks strange on her. I expected to see the old Claire again, with the weight of her illness no longer bearing down on us, but I barely know the person sitting across the table from me. Even her eyes seem different. Their color is unchanged, but someone else is behind them. I cook her favorite breakfast, French toast with berries, bacon on the side, a touch of orange liqueur in the whipped cream, a cinnamon latte brewed with the espresso machine I bought her 2 birthdays ago. It's the kind of meal I used to prepare for special occasions, birthdays, anniversaries, New Year's Day. I would plate the food like a chef, arrange the dishes on a tray, creep up the stairs as silently as possible, and surprise her in bed. She would pretend to have been sleeping the entire time and kiss my neck as I leaned down to place the tray in her lap. The scent of vanilla and cinnamon would linger in our bedroom through the next morning. Claire does not eat. She stares at the food, which I have served on her favorite of our mismatched plates, as if I mean to poison her. Picking up her fork, she prods at it for a moment, and then breaks down in tears. I'm alarmed. Claire has been so catatonic over the last few weeks that this display of emotion is frightening. I can't tell if I've done something wrong. I can't tell if I've done something right. I'm frightened that she might shatter if I touch her. Kneeling beside her chair, I beg her to tell me what's wrong, and it takes several wet, shuddering minutes for her to calm herself enough to even speak. As it turns out, I'm the problem. We are the problem. This house is the problem. This town is the problem. The world is the problem. All this time, she's apparently been expecting that the cancer would kill her, and that thought had somehow granted her a perverse sense of peace. Now that the executioner is departing, she finds herself in a world that she is unprepared to face and has not planned to exist in. She tells me that she goes to bed every night, hoping she won't wake up in the morning, but then she does, and she drifts directionless, unable to move forward. The continued presence of something where there should have been nothing is eating her alive. There's treatment, I say, attempting to reason with her. There's medication and therapy and watercolor painting and our cat Thomas and walks through the neighborhood with me by her side. We're winning against the cancer. We can win against this too. In a way, I'm relieved. These thoughts, however alarming, seem to me to be far less a threat than the tangible omen of that first lump under my fingertips, harbinger of a poisonous year. I harbor hope that the antidepressants will be the key, the magic cure that returns my wife to me. 7 crows peer in at us from their perch on the clothesline in the garden. We both weep. I'm not sure how to convince her to stay. Although the weather remains bitterly cold for spring, we travel to the coast to celebrate the end of chemo with a vanguard of 8 crows escorting our car. They look so elegant in flight that for once I almost don't resent their presence. One perches on the passenger's side mirror, cocking its head at me, and allows the wind to lift its wings as I drive along the one-lane road. Rolling hills pass by above us, sea below. Claire sleeps, curled in on herself, in the passenger seat. We stay in a rental cottage that was once a small chapel for the weekend. I'm torn between finding the hundreds of starfish suspended from the vaulted ceiling with fishing line charming or repulsive. I strain to touch one of them with my finger and set it swinging, realizing as I touch that peculiar porous lightness that they're real. This many could never have washed up on shore by chance. They were killed for this purpose. An ocean of desiccated stars spreads out above me as I succumb to sleep, protected from prying avian eyes by the stained glass that fills the windows. Here, they cannot reach us. Here, I can almost forget. I wonder what it would take to make the walls of our own house feel this secure. For the first time in months, I allow myself to relax. In her sleep, Claire reaches out for me. I pull her close, relishing the proximity, the sensation of her body next to me, heavy against the mattress. We haven't shared a bed in months. The respite, of course, is temporary. And then I'm in hell. I know that I'm in hell, because if I were living in any sort of just, karmic world, these godforsaken birds would drop dead, and Claire would shake off whatever spell they've cast on her, and she would come back to me. We would pull on our mucky boots, the ones we use when it's muddy outside from weeks of rain, and walk the yard together, wrapping feathered bodies in old newspaper and dropping them one by one into the garbage bin. Claire would be squeamish, afraid to touch the dead little things, and insist on wearing the mint green rubber gloves I wear when scrubbing the toilets to protect her hands. I would grasp their corpses barehanded, squeezing their necks too tightly, just to make sure that they were really dead. Eventually, the bin would be filled with dead crows wrapped in paper like meat from the butcher shop, and I would crack a joke. What's black and white and dead all over? And Claire would snort and swat at me, and then we would throw away the rubber gloves and strip our clothes into the washing machine, and we would squeeze into the shower together, and I would wash her back the way she used to love, pressing my lips against her shoulder blades, inhaling the subtle perfume of the cherry soap that's always been her favorite. For a moment, the fantasy feels tangible enough that if I can just lean into it, hold onto it tightly enough, it might solidify into reality. But then I glance out the window to check on her, and where my wife should be, I see a mass of black feathers, an amorphous creature made of wings and eyes like a biblical angel. The bottom falls out of my stomach, and I run to the door, which bangs against the boot scraper on the porch as it flies open. Startled, the greater mass of crows takes off, revealing Claire's mercifully human form in the rocking chair, exactly where I left her. A handful remain, either settling on the porch railing or the arms of the chair, one even nestling into her lap, unfazed by my presence. I count them out of habit, 9, and suppress the delayed urge to vomit. I warn her, not for the first time, about mites and West Nile virus and bird flu. She strokes the back of the crow in her lap absently while I admonish her, as if she's forgotten it isn't the cat. I say her name, ask her if she's even listening to me, and she fails to react. I anger quickly these days, stretched like wire by constant worry. Before I can stop myself, I'm grabbing her shoulders to shake her. The crow in her lap is no longer content to be stroked. It lashes out like an adder, beak flashing, and I recoil as pain sears through my hand. It has carved a chunk of meat from the fleshy part of my palm, and even as scarlet wells from the wound and spills down my wrist, Claire does not react. The crow spreads its wings, its eyes never leaving mine, warning me away from her. Pinching my torn skin together, I retreat. I wash my wound, wrap my hand in a dish towel, and leave through the back door, dodging pie plates and styrofoam crows and knotted tinsel on my way to the truck. Claire is still sitting on the porch as I drive away. When I return hours later, head and hand both throbbing with pain, she's finally gone inside. At first, I think the crows have gone, but then the roof ripples, and I realize it's fully blanketed with them. I'm in hell, confined to the circle reserved for avian punishment. Prometheus and I are strange bedfellows, both of us unable to sleep at night, dreading wings on the horizon at dawn. On the day Claire attains remission, I open the front door to retrieve the weekend paper and find 10 crows standing on the front step like solicitors. They blink up at me, preening their feathers, prim and smug in their little black suits. I can feel more eyes on me, further away, although when I cast my gaze around the yard and street outside, I cannot find their owners. One of the crows hops closer and caws, tilting its head as if expecting something of me. 10 beware, it's the devil himself. My grandmother's raspy twang surges out of the past, and I argue with her inside my head. You also used to say that the devil would be charming when I met him. Care to reconcile those images? The crow caws again. I'm seized with the urge to kick it, which I suppress solely because the self-help book I've been reading says that indulging violent tendencies will only make them worse. But God, do I want to kick it. I want to slam my foot into its little crow body so hard that it explodes into a cloud of red mist and black feathers. It occurs to me for the first time that I could simply ask them what they want. I've offered no food, brokered no deal. The devil has no right to stand on my doorstep. There isn't anything here that belongs to him. On the other hand, I'm afraid that extending any kind of olive branch to the crows will be interpreted as an invitation. I'm not my wife. They will exercise no control over me. I slam the door in their faces. I awake to no crows, and the fear that permeates me eclipses any small relief at their absence. Taking the stairs 3 at a time, I burst into the bedroom that has become hers alone and find it empty. All her things are there. The TV still plays softly in the corner. Her half-finished glass of wine from the night before remains on the nightstand collecting fruit flies. The depression in the mattress that precisely fits her curled-up form has yet to fill in, but I know that she's gone. Her essence is missing. Her possessions are orphaned, no longer beloved treasures collected over a lifetime, but a scattered mess of objects without purpose. The room feels like one left uninhabited for years, or one with a corpse in it. The absolute lack of an occupant carries an oppressive weight. The curtain of pie tins twists on its twine as I run out the back door, but I already know that I'm too late. Claire's footprints remain in the pea gravel, but she's long gone. Her trail terminates in the center of the garden, and where the prints cease, I find her dew-damp bathrobe puddled on the ground. Glinting within its folds is a pearl, large, ovoid, with a faint blue luster. From its smaller end dangles a clasp, which is secured to the thin gold band I begged her so many times to take off. Today, I'd give anything to see it on her finger again. I'd take it all back, the crows, the cancer, the fighting. Swallowing against the rising lump in my throat, I pick up the pearl and roll it between my fingers, questioning its purpose. Is it a dowry or a consolation prize? I slide the ring onto my own finger and wait for the crows to return. They'll come back. I have to believe that they will. I watch for wings on the horizon.
Yeah. Um, that was a lovely story, RJ. Thank you. It really spoke to me. Me and cancer have been kicking the shit out of each other for about a decade. I can tell you that I've seen the crows, they're fucking real. Um, really lovely work. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Karen Heuler, thank you also for joining us again for Story Hour. I want to thank my amazing co-host, Laura Blackwell, and all of you for coming back every week. And next week, we are really excited to have Jennifer Brozak and Marguerite Scheffer joining us. RJ Aurand, Karen Heuler, Laura Blackwell. Thanks, folks. Good night.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Good night.